Today, I'm going to tell you a story of memory, revenge, and a love that survived bullets, betrayal, and time itself. On a dusty morning in 1878, a stagecoach rolled into a forgotten Montana town, and a mysterious bride stepped down, carrying a letter, a secret, and a past heavy with ghosts. No one knew her name. No one knew her story. But one cowboy, a man who hadn't smiled in years, looked into her eyes and froze. And if tales like this stir something in you, go ahead and subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from. Title: Do You Recognize Me, Cowboy Man? The bride whispered, I was your childhood neighbor. The stagecoach rolled in, slow beneath the blistered sun of late summer, its wooden wheels groaning as they ground through the dust-caked main street of Dry Creek, Montana. The horses, sweat-lathered and restless, stomped against their harnesses as the driver pulled them to a halt in front of the general store. Everything about the town seemed sun-bleached and time-worn, from the faded signs to the slouching buildings that looked like they were held together by stubbornness and old nails. A dog barked. Somewhere down the street, a blacksmith's hammer paused mid-swing. The townsfolk turned to look. New arrivals were rare in Dry Creek, especially dressed ones. And this woman, stepping down from the coach with a small valise in hand and dust on the hem of her pale lavender traveling dress, was unlike anyone they'd seen in months. Mail-order bride, someone whispered. For the Brennan boy, came another voice, followed by a low chuckle. Annabelle Rourke ignored the murmurs, though her cheeks flushed beneath the wide brim of her straw bonnet. Her gloved hand gripped the handle of her valise a little tighter. It had been a long ride west from St. Louis, and the last leg from Helena had left her bones sore and her nerves raw. Still, she held her chin high, like her mother had taught her, and surveyed the town through cool, cautious eyes. Dust and heat shimmered in the street. Men leaned on porch railings. Women peeked from behind lace curtains. A gust of wind lifted her skirts and sent the corner of a wanted poster flapping. She was here, finally. And nothing about Dry Creek looked like the letters had promised. Inside the general store, the smell of coffee beans, leather, and molasses clung to the air. Annabelle pushed open the door, the bell above it jangling sharp against the quiet. She expected to see Nathaniel Brannon, the man who had written her kind, articulate letters over the past 6 months, who had offered her a future, a home, a life. Instead, there stood a man by the far wall, hat low over his eyes, dusty boots planted square on the floorboards. He looked like he had just come in, off the range, sun-browned skin, lean build, and a trail-worn duster that had seen better days. He was sorting through a small pile of canned peaches. Mr. Brannon, she asked, her voice soft but clear. The man turned slowly. His eyes found hers, gray-blue, stormy and piercing. For a moment, neither spoke. You must be mistaken, miss, he said, though something in his voice trembled. Annabelle took a step closer. She tilted her head. Do you recognize me, Cowboy Man? The canned goods dropped from his hands with a loud clatter. His breath caught. Annie, he whispered. And there it was, the name no one else had called her in 15 years. She felt the years fall away. The Missouri summers, the fireflies by the creek, the swing rope by the old sycamore. Cole Brannon had been her shadow, her childhood protector, the boy who'd dared her to climb trees and kissed her hand once behind the chicken coop. But that was a lifetime ago. He looked different now, hardened. A shadow lived behind his eyes. Cole, she said, nearly breathless. His throat worked. I didn't know it was you. She blinked. But Nathaniel, I came here to marry Nathaniel Brannon. He wrote me. Cole stepped forward, removing his hat. His hair was longer than she remembered, streaked with a one-in-Aussie. Nate sent me to pick you up, he said, not meeting her eyes. He's at the ranch. A pause. She studied him carefully. There was something guarded in the way he stood, the way he spoke. She had known him once like the back of her own hand, and now he felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. He couldn't come himself. Busy with cattle, Cole replied too quickly. Drive up's been tough this season. He took her valise without asking, his grip tight around the handle. Come on. It'll be nightfall before we make it up the ridge. Outside, the heat still clung to the earth, but the sun had begun its slow descent toward the mountains. As they hitched her trunk to the wagon, townsfolk watched with keen eyes. Whispers chased them down the street. She climbed into the seat beside him. The silence between them stretched. How long have you lived out here? She asked. Couple years. Nate came out first. Sent for me after Pa passed. I'm sorry to hear that. He nodded. You disappeared. Back in Missouri. One day you were there, then you weren't. Annabelle looked ahead into the trees lining the road north. We had to leave. It wasn't a choice. The road narrowed as the wagon climbed. Pines flanked them, tall and close. The air thinned. Annabelle felt the prickle of something unweighed sitting between them. That night, as the stars unfolded over the ranch and Cole disappeared into the barn to tend the horses, Annabelle unpacked her trunk in the guest room of the modest, creaking ranch house. The walls smelled of pine and tobacco. Her fingers moved through folded dresses and carefully wrapped keepsakes. At the bottom of the trunk, she found a blanket, and beneath it a shirt, blood-stained. Not fresh, but unmistakable. A man's work shirt, rough-spun cotton. The stitching on the breast read. Her heart thudded. She stared at it, breath catching in her throat. Nathaniel Brannon. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and the man in the barn wasn't speaking the full truth. The ride to the Brannon ranch was longer than Annabelle had expected. The wagon creaked and jolted as they moved up into the pine-covered hills, the sky overhead darkening to a bruised indigo. Shadows stretched long across the road, and a hush settled over the land, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Cole said little, focusing on the reins, his jaw clenched tight. Every so often he would glance at her from under his hat, but his eyes gave nothing away. Annabelle sat stiffly, her fingers twisted in her lap. The blood-stained shirt haunted her thoughts. Why had he hidden it? What else wasn't he telling her? When they finally reached the ranch, it stood lonely and broad against the ridge. The house itself was 2 stories built of solid timber, its paint long since peeled by wind and rain. A barn slouched nearby, doors ajar, and a corral held a few tired horses. Smoke curled from the chimney, but no lights showed in the windows. Annabelle stepped down from the wagon, her boots crunching on the gravel. A few ranch hands stood near the barn, but none approached. One nodded curtly before turning away. Another spat and disappeared around the side of the barn. They're not used to company, Cole muttered as he untied her trunk. They looked at me like I'd brought a plague, she said wetly. Cole paused. It's been a hard year. Inside, the house was neat, but sparsely furnished. The parlor had a stone hearth, a worn armchair, and a faded quilt draped across the back of a settee. Cole showed her to a small room upstairs. You can stay here for now, he said, lighting a lamp. It's simple but warmy. She nodded, setting her bag down. Thank you. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Annabelle turned. Cole, why was there blood on that shirt? Why was it hidden in my trunk? He didn't answer immediately. He stared at the lamp flame, then sighed and looked at her, his eyes full of shadows. Nate's dead, he said flatly. The world tilted. What? He died 2 weeks ago. Fell from his horse, broke his neck. Annabelle's knees nearly gave out. She sat hard on the bed. Why didn't you tell me? Why the letters, the arrangement, all of it? Because I don't think it was an accident. Cole said, his voice low. I think someone wanted him dead. She looked up, stunned. Who? I don't know, not yet. But Nate was into something dangerous. Annabelle pressed a hand to her chest. The corset felt tighter than ever. So, what happens now? Legally, by the contract, the land passes to you, Cole said. You were going to be his wife. He signed everything. It's yours. She let out a breath. I can't just leave. I have nowhere to go. Cole stepped closer. I need you to stay. Just for now. Please. I think you're in danger. Her eyes narrowed. From who? The Black Ridge Gang, he said grimly. They have been sniffing around since Nate died, asking questions. Nate owed someone something, I think. And now they think you hold the deed. Annabelle looked toward the window. The mountains beyond were black silhouettes. Somewhere out there, men wanted what was now hers. Men who killed. What was Nate involved in? I wish I knew, Cole said. He kept things close. But he was worried before he died. Real worried. Started carrying a gun in the house. Annabelle's voice trembled. And you? Why are you really here, Cole? He looked at her long and hard. Because I should have been here a long time ago. I let Nate talk me into leaving Missouri. I let too many years slip by. You disappeared, and I never tried to find you. A soft silence fell. She turned away toward the mirror, catching sight of her own pale face. We were children, Cole, and my family didn't leave by choice. He stepped back. You don't have to trust me. But you should know I'd never let anyone hurt you. Not again. It's that night as the wind howled through the trees, Annabelle lay awake in the little room staring at the ceiling. The lamp was out. The blood-stained shirt lay hidden again in the bottom of her trunk, like a secret no one dared name aloud. Sleep didn't come easy. Images swirled in her mind. Missouri summers, the old riverbank, Cole's laugh, the sound of her father's boots pounding the floor as they fled their home in the night. And Nate, a face she only knew through ink and parchment. Morning broke gray and cold. Fog draped the ranch like a shroud. When Annabelle stepped into the kitchen, Cole was already there, shirt sleeves rolled frying bacon over the stove. He handed her a plate without a word. She sat across from him. I had a dream, she said finally, of the old rope swing, the one by the sycamore. A rare smile touched his lips. You always jumped too early, fell in the mud more times than I can count. But you always helped me up. They ate in silence after that. Outside the ranch, hands moved like shadows, glancing at Annabelle and quickly looking away. Something unspoken ran through this place, something that didn't welcome outsiders. She could feel it in the walls. Cole caught her looking. They're just nervous, don't know where their loyalties lie. To Nate or to whoever killed him. Cole didn't answer, but his eyes told her enough. Later that day, a rider came up the trail, dust rising behind a black horse. The man wore a long coat and a pistol at his hip. He tipped his hat to Annabelle but didn't smile. Sheriff Hollis, Cole said. Morning. Heard your bride arrived, the sheriff said. He eyed Annabelle. She know yet? Cole gave a slow nod. I told her. The sheriff sighed. Well, you best keep an eye out. Word is, Black Ridge men were seen near Snake Ridge. 2 nights back. Annabelle felt a chill slide down her spine. Thanks for the warning, Cole said. The sheriff tipped his hat again. You need anything, send word. When the rider disappeared down the hill, Cole turned to her. You see now why I wanted you to stay. Annabelle swallowed hard. Yes, she whispered. We're not just dealing with loss, Annie. We're dealing with war. The days that followed were tense and quiet, like the hush before a storm. The ranch breathed a new kind of silence, now thick with secrets and half-spoken truths. Cole and Annabelle kept their distance in public, but were seen often enough together that tongues in town began to wag in a different tone. To the outside world, They were husband and wife. It was Cole's idea. They won't bother you if they think you're married, he said, eyes fixed on the horizon. A widow alone, that's a target. But a Brannan bride, that still means something around here. Annabelle had nodded more out of necessity than belief. The lie settled in her chest like a stone. She signed her name in the town ledger as Mrs. Annabelle Brannan, and the gossip moved faster than a prairie fire. Their days were stiff with pretense, meals shared without words, quiet rides to the edge of the property, nights under the same roof, though never in the same room. But somewhere beneath the surface, something stirred. A warmth that once lived in Missouri crept back in through cracks in their defense. One evening after supper, Cole found her by the old windmill, her fingers trailing along the rusted pump handle. "You remember this?" she asked. He chuckled. "Used to think it pumped magic water. You said it healed your scraped knee." "It did. Or maybe it was you carrying me that did it." He didn't answer, but his smile lingered. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and he reached to tuck it behind her ear, then stopped, letting his hand fall. The spell broke when they found the note. Pinned to the barn door with a rusted nail, it was written in blocky, uneven script, "You don't belong here." No name, no mark. Annabelle's fingers trembled as she read it. Cole took it and folded it wordlessly, slipping it into his coat. "Could be a prank," he offered. "Or a warning," she said, her voice hard. The next morning, her mare was found lying still in the paddock, foam at the mouth, eyes wide. "Poison," Cole muttered, crouching beside the animal. He didn't look at Annabelle. "Someone's trying to shake you." Annabelle turned away, her eyes burning. Sheriff Hollis came by later that afternoon. He rode in slow, his face grimmer than usual. He tied his horse with a practiced flick and strode toward the porch where Cole sat, cleaning his rifle. "You got a problem, Brannan," he said without preamble. Cole squinted up. "I got a dozen." "Which one you bringin'?" The sheriff held up a slip of paper. Another note. "This one found nailed to the church door. Brannan blood will spill again." Cole stared at it for a long moment, then stood slowly. "How many folks know about the land contract?" "Too many," Hollis said. "Word travels. You and your new wife made quite the stir." Annabelle stepped onto the porch, hands folded. "You think someone in town did it?" she asked. Hollis hesitated. "I think someone around town did. These ain't outsiders, ma'am. These are folks who know your habits, your routines." He turned to Cole. "You sure you told her everything?" Cole's jaw tightened. "About what?" "About your brother. About the will." A pause hung between them, long, heavy. That night, Cole found her in the study, staring at the dying fire. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. She looked up slowly. "I'm listening." He sank into the chair opposite her, ran a hand down his face. "Nate never finished his will. It was drafted but not signed. The land would have gone to the state, or to that damned bank in Helena. I couldn't let that happen." She sat upright. "What did you do?" "I forged his signature, made it look clean, legal. I had to make sure the ranch stayed with you. If not, the vultures would have picked it clean." Annabelle stared at him, heart pounding. "You could go to prison for that." "I know." "Why would you risk it for land?" "Not for land," he said, eyes meeting hers. "For you." She swallowed. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair. "You didn't have the right, Cole." "Maybe not. But I had a reason. And I'd do it again." Silence settled between them like snowfall. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold. "So now we're both liars. Me playing the bride. You faking the will. Difference is," he said softly, "you still have a choice. I don't." The next day, word spread that 2 more cattle from the Brannan ranch had gone missing. Fence wires had been cut clean. No one saw a thing. Tension on the ranch grew like mold. The hands whispered more, drank more. One by one, a few quit without a word. At night, Cole posted watch. Annabelle stayed in her room staring out the window. She began to keep her boots on, her pistol close. The past had caught up, and now it wore a different face. By the end of the week, another note was tucked into the folds of her apron, left by the laundry. Next time it'll be him. No one needed to ask who him was. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. Annabelle found the letter in a hollow floorboard beneath Nate's old desk. She hadn't meant to find it. She was searching for the estate ledger, hoping to trace the flow of debts and payments Nate had managed before his death. But the wood beneath her heel creaked oddly, and when she pried it up there, it was a folded piece of parchment, yellowed at the edges marked in Nate's strong, upright handwriting. She unfolded it, heart already bracing. To Mr. Aldous Blackridge, per our agreement, I will sign over the southern acres upon receipt of final payment. The East Ridge, however, remains in dispute. As we discussed, I cannot promise what I do not fully own. My brother may resist. Should that become a problem, I trust you will handle it. No signature. But enough. Her hands shook. Nate had been preparing to sell the land to Blackridge, to the very men now circling the ranch like vultures. And worse, he'd expected Cole to resist. She stumbled back from the desk, her breath tight. The betrayal stung not just because of Nate, but because the man she thought she was marrying had once planned to deal with criminals. What else had he kept from her? She took the letter to Cole. He read it once, then twice, jaw working. I figured he might have been in over his head, he muttered, but not like this. You knew something. You've been hiding more. He didn't deny it. Cole walked to the window, staring out at the horizon, where the land rolled on, forever golden under a setting sun. I saw who killed him. Annabelle froze. The day Nate died, Cole said, voice like gravel. He told me he was meeting someone near Devil's Bend, said he needed to settle something. I followed him, thought he was being reckless. I stayed hidden in the trees, watched him argue with a man I didn't recognize until it was too late. His eyes darkened. The man shoved him off his horse. Head hit a rock. He didn't get up. You saw it happen, she whispered. He nodded slowly. I couldn't stop it. And if I stepped in, I'd be dead too. Why didn't you tell the sheriff? Because the man was Aldous Blackridge's right hand. And because I didn't have proof. Annabelle sank into the chair. Cole pulled something from a drawer, a small journal, worn leather, Nate's initials faint on the cover. Been collecting what I could. Names, meeting times, even a map of where they camp. But they have ears everywhere. Hollis might even be compromised. I can't trust anyone fully. The weight of it all pressed on her. She stared into the fire, eyes glossy. I need to tell you something too. About Missouri. About why we left. Cole turned, face unreadable. My father didn't leave because of debts like we claimed. He was accused of murder. A neighbor boy went missing. My father found the body, ran to get help. But they didn't believe him. The sheriff came for him that night. We fled before they could hang him. Cole said nothing. It was your father who helped us, she continued. He gave us horses, supplies, warned us of the posse. Cole swallowed hard. He never told me. He said it might cost him his place in the community, said helping an innocent man run was still a crime. For a long time neither of them spoke. Outside the wind moaned through the pines, inside the fire cracked and shifted. We both carry ghosts, Annabelle said quietly, and maybe we've been lying to ourselves about who we were and who we are. Cole looked at her, really looked. Not as the girl who once swung from ropes near the creek, or the woman he'd forged a will for, but as someone who had seen pain, who knew what it meant to survive insolence. He moved toward her slowly. I should have come looking for you, he said. I should have never let Missouri end the way it did. She blinked, tears pricking her lashes. I looked for you in every town we stopped, but after a while I stopped hoping. He knelt beside her chair, took her hand. Hope's a stubborn thing. Comes back even when we tell it not to. She squeezed his hand and kissed him. It wasn't rushed, wasn't desperate. It was the slow burn of a fire that had never quite died. The kind of kiss that tastes like old memories and new beginnings. When they pulled away, she whispered, we don't get to choose our pasts, Cole. But maybe we still get to choose what comes next. His voice was low. Then I choose you. Again. Always. Outside the night stretched deep and dark. But for the first time since she arrived, Annabelle didn't feel alone. The shadows were still gathering, but now she had someone to face them with. The night fell silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the strained stillness before a thunderclap. It wrapped around the Brannon ranch like a noose. Even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. Cole stood on the porch, his rifle cradled in his arms, eyes locked on the tree line. They're coming, he said. Annabelle stood beside him, pistol at her hip, her face pale but resolute. He turned to her. You don't have to fight. She met his gaze. Yes, I do. They had spent the day barricading the windows, reinforcing the barn doors, and hiding the ranch hands willing to stay. Only 3 remained. The rest had fled under cover of darkness, leaving behind muddy boot prints and unfinished tasks. Sheriff Hollis arrived just before midnight, his horse lathered in sweat, his coat dusted in travel grime. You sure about this? He asked, eyes darting. Cole nodded. They want the land. They want her. Hollis hesitated. I kept my distance till now, thinking maybe things would blow over. But I've known you both too long to let you stand alone. He dismounted and cocked his rifle. Then we stand together, Annabelle said. The first shot rang out, just past 1 in the morning. It shattered the stillness like glass. Cole ducked behind the porch beam and returned fire. Shadows moved between the trees. Gunpowder stung the air. From the barn, 2 of the ranch hands held the line. One shouted and went down, clutching his side. Annabelle ran to help, dragging the man back under cover. They're flanking, Hollis yelled. Cole cursed. They want the livestock pens. That's where the deed copies are hidden. They shifted positions, Cole leading Annabelle and Hollis around the back. The fight intensified near the feed house. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness in orange bursts. Someone screamed. Inside the barn, hay scattered across the floor. Cole kicked open a supply trunk and tossed Annabelle a spare pistol. Keep it close, he said. The doors burst open. A man charged in, gun raised. Annabelle didn't think. She fired. The shot echoed like thunder. The man collapsed. She stood over him, breath ragged. You saved my life, Cole said. You would have done the same. Outside, Hollis took down another attacker, then staggered to one knee. Blood on his sleeve. But he waved them off. Not bad enough to kill me yet. Then, as sudden as it started, the shooting stopped. A voice called out. Low, familiar. Annabelle Rourke, come out. You and I got unfinished family business. Her blood ran cold. She stepped into the moonlight, Cole beside her, rifle steady. From the shadows stepped a man with gray hair, sharp eyes, and a scar across his cheek. Uncle Thaddeus, she said, barely a whisper. Cole tensed. You know him. He's my mother's brother. Thaddeus chuckled darkly. Didn't think you'd recognize me. Last time you saw me, you were hiding under your father's coat, fleeing Missouri like rats. You killed Nate. He broke a deal. And this land belonged to our blood long before any Brannon claimed it. Your grandfather stole it. This is just the past catching up. Annabelle lifted her chin. No. This land was bought, worked, earned. You don't get to rewrite history with bullets. He raised his gun. Neither do you. Before he could fire, Cole pulled the trigger. Thaddeus dropped. Twilight fell again. Dawn broke over Dry Creek an hour later, painting the hills gold. The sheriff limped back into town with 2 wounded outlaws tied to his saddle. Cole and Annabelle stood together, watching the smoke curl from the barn roof. A bullet had grazed a rafter, sparked a small fire. It was out now. The land smelled of gunpowder, sweat, and victory. "You all right?" Cole asked softly. Annabelle nodded. "I will be." They turned to the house, shoulders brushing. "We still have the land," she said. "We have more than that," he replied. She looked at him. "What now?" "Now we rebuild, together." As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows behind them, they stepped inside the house. Home at last. Days passed. The sun rose slower. The wind blew gentler. What was once a battlefield slowly became a home again. The bodies were buried on the hill behind the barn where the pine trees whispered in the breeze. Sheriff Hollis had returned to town nursing a bandaged arm, promising to send word to the circuit judge about what happened. 2 of the captured Black Ridge men had confessed. Thaddeus Rourke's name was now tied to more than a dozen unsolved crimes across the territories. Cole stood in front of the fire, the same spot where secrets had once burned. This time he held no lies, just the worn edges of a government letter. "They're offering me a deal," he said quietly. "If I testify the forgery, the will, it'll be overlooked. They want Black Ridge more than they want me." Annabelle looked up from her sewing needle, paused in hand. "So it's over." "Maybe," he replied. "For the law." The silence between them was different now. Not heavy, not unsure. Just full. She tied off the last thread, folded the cloth. "And me?" she asked. "What about my part in all this?" Cole sat beside her. "The land is yours, Annie. You could sell it. Take the money. Go anywhere. Start over, far from this place." She studied his face. "Is that what you want me to do?" He looked down. "It's not about what I want. Not anymore." A day later, the town clerk arrived with the final paperwork. The deed was clean. Her name in perfect script was now the legal owner of Brannan Ranch. The town watched her carefully that day. Some curious, some hopeful. A few still whispered mistrust, lingering like smoke. Back at the ranch, the house smelled of wood smoke and fresh bread. The kind of scent that stayed in memory. She stood by the window, gazing at the ridge, the place where everything had changed. The wind carried faint echoes of gunfire now, softened by time. She didn't pack. She walked out to the barn where Cole was fixing a hinge on the stall. He looked up as she approached, dust in his hair, sleeves rolled. "You leaving?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." He stared, cautious hope blooming. "I thought maybe—" "You were wrong," she said gently. "This isn't just your land, it's ours." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Why, you could have left all this behind." Annabelle took his hand, rough with calluses and covered in dirt. "Because the only place I ever felt like myself was beside you. And I won't run anymore. Not from the past. Not from the pain." Cole exhaled slowly. "You sure?" "I'm sure." They spent the evening on the porch just like the first night. The windmill creaked in the distance. The ski turned from gold to violet. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Remember when I said I was your neighbor?" she whispered. He smiled. "I remember." She looked up, eyes soft in the dusk. "Do you recognize me now, cowboy?" His hand found hers. He squeezed it gently, saw. "I always recognized you, Annie. Even when I didn't want to. Even when it hurt." A hush fell over the ranch. A silence not of fear, but of peace hard won. Together they watched the stars rise. A new chapter. Not without scars, but with roots. And in the heart of Montana, beneath the endless sky, a bride and a cowboy found something they thought they had lost long ago: home. Some stories don't end with a wedding or a gunshot or a ride into the sunset. Sometimes they end with a quiet choice to stay, to forgive, to begin again. In the dust and wind of the Old West, Annabelle and Cole didn't just survive a storm. They built a home from its ruins. And maybe that's the truest kind of love there is. This was the story of a bride who rode into town and found her way back to the boy she never stopped carrying in her heart.